Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad of Dalmar, together with my co-host Mark Kronich, statewide news service and jbiztechvalley.com.
Yeah, Rabbi, we're going to talk about a very serious topic here, is organ donations, specifically kidneys, and how New York State's involvement and how many, and you know, how much of a need there is for kidney donors. And with us today, we have the Executive Director of the Northeast Kidney Foundation, Carol LaFleur. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we have Rabbi Mendy Mathless, the co-director of the University Heights Chabad Jewish Student Center, who's also a kidney donor. And we wanted to talk to you about what it was like when you donated your kidney. So why don't we start with you first, and then we'll talk to Carol about her experiences with what it takes to go on dialysis and to, if you don't get a kidney, and how that affects your life and what it takes, to be a kidney donor. So let's just talk to you first about your experience.
I donated my kidney almost 4 years ago, in November of 2010. It was an unbelievable experience, to say the least. I think more than anything, what means so much to me is that, when we hear of people who are sick or battling illness, we try to help them, we try to pray for them and do what we can, but not always is there something tangible that we can really do to make a difference. And, we pray and we really can, we wish we could move mountains for them, but it doesn't usually happen. And with kidney donation, with a simple decision, just, I'm going to give my kidney, you can really and truly single-handedly save someone's life. So I think it's a very, very powerful ability.
How did it impact your life? Did you have any discomfort? Are there things that you cannot do now that you were able to do before?
I mean, honestly, about 2 months after I gave my kidney, I pretty much forgot about it. I don't think about it every day. It doesn't affect me day to day.
Now, who did you give the kidney to? A relative or a friend?
No, actually, it was a member of the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic community. I never met him at the time. I didn't know who he was. It's a person who lives in Israel, Netanya. He's a father of 3. Very, very fit. He just.
And you've met him since?
I met him actually before. Before the donation, which is not really the way it works, but. It was kind of a divine providence that we met.
And he is a rabbi in Netanya?
He's
not a rabbi yet, he's just, what?
Yeah, but
he's a businessman.
How did it work if you're in Albany and he's in Israel? I'm just saying, even the medical logistics of it. What, did they freeze it? And I don't know. I'm just explaining it, please.
What happened was, it was about 2 or 3 months before my wife and I moved to Albany to direct the Chabad house for graduate students here. And there was a sign up in the main...
It dropped. You got to put it up through the hole in there. Okay, you got it? Okay, thank you. Sorry.
There was a sign up in the main Chabad synagogue in Brooklyn at 770 Eastern Parkway. It just said, two men, fathers of families, looking for kidney, in need of kidneys. And there was a phone number, and I called, and... It's a long story.
But what made you want to call and say, we don't need an extra kidney, I don't need my extra kidney? What made you go through that extra
Just
step?
to answer Rabbi Simon's question.
Okay,
so,
sorry.
Actually, my recipient came here, and the procedure was done in Mount Sinai Hospital, Manhattan. So I had still not moved to Albany when the process started, and the surgery was done here. So there was, it went straight out of me, straight into him. There was no flying organs overseas or anything like that. What made me give a kidney? To be honest, I don't know. Something was just told me to dial the number. I didn't really think that I'd actually be donating a kidney when I did dial that number. But once the process started and I had actually met the person, and I realized that it's not just a sign, it's a real person, a real family. Once the process started and God had put it in my lap, I decided to go ahead with it.
Okay, now I got to ask you a question with all due respect, and it may sound like a silly question, and everyone tells me there's no silly questions, only silly answers, but I have to is there a problem with donating a kidney from a man to a woman or a woman to a man or anything
Not
like
at
that?
all. Not at all.
Not even from a
Everybody
Chabad
has
aspect or
nothing.
anything like that? Okay,
No,
I'm sorry.
racism or sexism in
I-
kidneys. Everybody has the
I-
same kidneys.
I just ask.
All right, it's a
That's
good
all.
question.
Okay,
Listen,
I'm
Mark,
sorry.
you're a reporter.
Just
You
very
asked the question.
gently, I ask gently, I don't want a
But,
whole bunch.
Carol, I'll go to you. That
Yes.
obviously this person had a problem that he donated to. What is the extent of the problems that people need kidneys? How statistics? How many people need it? How many are waiting for it? How many donors give during the year?
Well, in New York State, there are 8,500 people approximately waiting for a kidney transplant right now. Nationwide, that number is about 115,000. So those in need of a kidney make up the majority of the national transplant waiting list.
Is there a reason why? Because you hear about that. I actually have another friend in New York. Again, I mean, I'm not a statistics to go around like you know more than I do, but you hear more about that than heart transplants or liver transplants. Is it easier, or is kidneys get worse than other organs?
Well, the incidence of kidney disease continues to rise in the country.
Why is that?
Well, diabetes is the leading cause of kidney failure, and uncontrolled blood pressure is the second leading cause of kidney failure. So as those two things continue to increase, so does the incidence of those living with kidney disease.
And, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, and we also do have dialysis treatment, which is wonderful because people that are waiting for a kidney have an option while they're waiting to keep them alive. Whereas if someone is waiting for a heart transplant, there may not necessarily be a treatment for them that can sustain their life.
Now, now we have a case in Albany here with a woman, Myrna Bernstein. She's had billboards put up asking for a kidney. She's a blood type A or O, and she's also been on the bus placards, on the sides of buses, whizzing by, crying out for a kidney. And unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today, but you know her case.
I do know Myrna,
and where she has polycystic kidney. What is that, and how is that different from what you were saying about diabetes and high blood pressure?
Polycystic kidney disease is most often a hereditary disease, and basically it's cysts that form on your kidneys, and at some point they burst. And folks with PKD can lead to other complications, which can shut down their kidneys. But heart can cause heart disease. It can cause other things. But PKD is genetic, and we work with a lot of folks that have polycystic kidney disease.
Her brother and her mother both had
Yeah.
PKD, and her mother passed from that, and her brother had a kidney transplant. So, she's looking for a kidney donor. Now, what's the universal blood type? Is that O? Is that the?
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
O. And A is rare?
A is rare. The way that they match them is based on blood and tissue typing. So certain blood types can donate, and certain
Right.
to others, and certain can receive. But O is the universal, and A is the rarest.
Is the rarest.
Yeah.
So it's very tough for Myrna because of that?
Yeah.
I
Well,
didn't
it's
know
a
that.
little
I'm
challenging.
a blood type A, so I didn't know it was so rare.
Oh, wow.
You're a rare guy. Well, it's good
Can't
thing
do it
that other
again.
person,
You
yeah.
can't do it again. Now, why don't we need why do we have an extra kidney, or why can we give up a kidney without having it impact someone like Rabbi Mathless?
I don't really know the clinical answer to that. I'm not sure that there is a clinical answer to it. Most folks
That's
are.
a question for the rabbi.
Well,
Why
yeah.
did God create two kidneys?
Well,
That's
I-
a rabbinical
yeah.
question.
That's
not
why
a
I kind of
medical
changed
question.
it a little, because I'm thinking, okay, this is a biblical question maybe, but
I don't know that there's a clinical answer to that question. Most people are born with two kidneys. I say most because we have heard occasionally of someone only having one kidney and not discovering that until much later in
and
their
the
life.
kidney does what in the body? What does the kidney do?
The kidney cleans out all the toxins in your body, so it basically helps remove all the waste and all the icky stuff.
How many transplants are there? You're in the Northeast. Well, I guess maybe you know statistics all over the United States. How many people are like Rabbi Mathless, people have unfortunately you hear car accidents and, saying,
Yeah.
well, if I'm young and, then take my parts and let them, my organs, inner organs, and give it to someone and give them life. But how many are there going on?
Well, here in Albany, Albany Medical Center is the transplant center that performs the kidney transplants. I honestly don't know off the top of my head how many transplants were performed last year. I can tell you it's never enough because there are people that are waiting. The statistic is that 17 people die every day waiting for a kidney
Really?
transplant.
Wow. And what's the average age of someone who needs a kidney, who's had kidney failure or about to?
It's, the average age, I'm going to say is probably an middle-aged adult, but the wait list has children on it all the way up to senior citizens. So
Right,
there are many people.
but the average is in the 50s and
Yeah.
60s that you first see your organs probably changing a little and
It
not
goes the other
functioning
way.
as well
What
as in
would-
your 20s and 30s.
What would be
or-
the oldest age of kidney, like an 80-year-old man? Well, I'm dying anyway, so take my kidneys. Well, you're an 80-year-old kidney. I mean,
Well,
I don't know. I'm asking.
There are some 80-year-olds that are in better health than the four of us sitting around this table right now.
Right.
So it's not necessarily based on age that
That's
someone can be a donor.
interesting.
They are looking at things at the national level where they may try, the organ donation system is changing in the country to try and make sure that the organs stay as viable as possible for as long as possible. So, for example, they are looking at things like, should we take a kidney from a 70-year-old person and transplant that into someone in their 20s? That may not be a viable
Yeah, because they're
option
going
long
to need
term.
it for 50, 60 years, and
Correct.
the 70-year-old kidney's not going to. Just go back to Rabbi Mathless, because it is the Jewish view. Usually Jewish people, Jewish law, Orthodox Jewish law, Torah law, doesn't allow autopsies and you donating organs, and obviously you did, and you're Orthodox. Just tell us the Jewish law that allowed you to do this.
Okay, so with regards to autopsy, the Torah and Jewish law accord utmost respect to a deceased person. When possible, we try to avoid autopsy. We try to avoid desecrating the body, which has been a holy vessel. A person has done a lot of good deeds in their life, and a body of someone who's passed on is holy as well. And we try to accord it utmost respect. So there's a dispute amongst the rabbis. There's a dispute about this amongst the rabbis, but generally, we don't do any types of organ donations after a person's passed away. However, live organ donation, such as a kidney or a lobe of a liver, which I think are the only two organs that can be donated when a person's still alive,
Kidney and liver?
and the lobe of a liver, those are permissible. I mean, there are certain qualifications and there's certain restrictions, so you'd have to okay it with a rabbinic authority first, but as a rule, there are allowances for doing that. And so in my case, the risk factor was very low, and
And you're giving somebody their whole life.
yeah, so it was okay. A lobe of a liver is a little more risky, so you might have to, there might be less room for that, but generally it is possible to be a living donor as far as Jewish law, but you'd have to, each individual case would need to be reviewed.
So you went and got a rabbinic ruling from, whether you have to go to a Beis Din or a group of rabbis?
Well, you don't need to go to a Beis Din. You'd have to go to a rabbi who's an expert in medical issues. And,
you just don't look those up in the phone book. How do you find them?
The easiest way for someone who's not familiar with the rabbinic leadership within the Orthodox community is to talk to your local rabbi, and he can then refer you to, just like a medicine, you have your family doctor, and he refers you to a specialist. So you talk to your local rabbi, and he'd refer you to an expert in medicine that can really give a definitive ruling.
Excellent.
Now, can it be a rabbi that's, now we have Skype and all that, can it be a rabbi who's overseas?
Oh, sure,
it doesn't matter
not an
where?
issue,
Okay.
yeah.
And Carol, I just want to ask you, there are a lot of restrictions of who can donate a kidney. If someone who has diabetes can't, someone who has high blood pressure can't. What are the other types of ailments that someone would have that would prevent them from donating a kidney?
Every kidney donor that steps forward is evaluated for their overall general health, and also there's a psychological assessment as well to make sure that the person that's donating is doing so for the right reasons. But things like someone that's a smoker may rule that person out. If there's a history of cancer, that may or may not rule someone out. So
They give somebody a CAT scan, for example, just to check it out beforehand?
they
I
do.
mean, a medical exam? Or?
I don't know that they necessarily do a CAT scan. This gentleman would be able to speak to his experience, but I know that there's a lot of blood testing that goes on. There's a lot of just, general physical assessments, looking at health history, the psychological assessment. They look at you and then any of your family history.
So
as
how
well.
old were you when you had your kidney?
I was
Donated?
26, which is, I think, relatively young for an altruistic kidney donation, but
And you have how many children now?
I have 3 children,
3 children.
Yeah.
Well,
thank God.
and you were just gotten married at the time?
We were married for 3 years.
You were married for 3 years, so
That'd be
you had
interesting.
no trouble, it didn't
Well, he has
affect...
to ask his wife. That would be an interesting, you're...
Yeah, so just with regards to the testing, I don't think I've ever been checked out as good in my life as I was when, in the middle of the process, this was in the summer of 2010, we had already moved to Albany after the process started, and it's quite a long process. They can expedite it, but I think I was in Mount Sinai about 6 or 7 times for the various testings before the surgery was scheduled. So, I drove down and I took the train many times, but so they check you out pretty well. And Carol mentioned earlier that some people aren't born with 2 kidneys. So one of the first things they have to check, they give you an MRI to see if you in fact have 2
So they
kidneys.
do give an MRI.
Yeah,
that's
so
what I'm saying.
they EKGs and blood work every time and all different types of imaging, so they test you very well.
Who covered the cost of all this?
The recipient's insurance, which is I think always the case. When you're giving a kidney, you shouldn't be incurring any costs. So the process is virtually no cost to you other than transportation. It's a very easy process relative to other surgeries, and it's a win-win, So
Absolutely. And Carol, I bring this up only because it's an issue that comes up when you talk about these things, and is that we can't sell our organs.
Absolutely not.
Right, okay.
Absolutely not.
So explain more of why people might want to, or, is there a black market? And could you explain, just a few minutes, I don't want to belabor this, but could you?
Well, there's not necessarily a black market in the United States. We hear of that overseas on occasion, but reasons to donate a kidney, I think this gentleman addressed it very well. I mean, you can save someone's life.
Mhm.
And what better legacy is there?
Well, because
than that?
people are not always as altruistic, and they might need the money to put food on the table, and they give up a kidney for it. But I'm just asking you, just for the record, just to state the obvious, is there New York state law? Is there federal law?
There's federal law.
Okay.
You cannot sell or be compensated for a kidney in the or any organ in the United States.
I think the only country in the world, at least when I donated a kidney, where a kidney market sort of was legalized and there was legislature about it is in Iran, actually, of all places. There is a movement in other countries to have, in the U.S. as well, to legalize kidney. Or compensation for organs, because as Carol was saying, the waiting list is something. I think when I donated a kidney in 2010, I think the number of live kidney donations that happened in the U.S. was about 6,000 a year, compared to the then 100,000 that were on the waiting list. So there's definitely a movement to.
That'll be a big motivation for, like you say, poor people. Like you say, could be healthy. They'd look at you. For
Obviously,
one kidney,
there are a lot of ethical issues, and that's why it's not widespread. But there are schools of thought in both They're
You
both
know,
schools of thought.
just
so.
I wanted to just sort of bring it up just because I'm sure someone in our viewership might be thinking this, and it might be nice to just, I didn't want to, like I
Well,
said,
maybe, like you
belabor it.
said,
So,
maybe it is a thought.
you
If
know,
people are gonna be motivated by money, at least they're gonna save somebody's life, so. I
yeah.
don't know, I'd have to think over Jewish law for that, but, you know, I mean, it sounds reasonable. I mean, people give up
Yeah. Uh,
something and they're poor.
Obviously, there's a host of ethical issues that are,
Yeah, I know.
someone
Yeah,
can't
what to
afford
think
it. and,
about it.
From the time that you answered that ad or you called that person to the time that you actually had the transplant, and you said you had several visits to Mount Sinai, et cetera, what was that time frame from the phone call to the transplant?
I think it was from mid or early August to November.
So it was a 4-month period?
It doesn't have to be that long. Again, I wasn't
3 or 4
local
months.
anymore, when the process had started, and that certainly helped things back.
What
so I
held
don't-
things back, I'm sorry?
I had already moved to Albany
Yeah.
for the donation, and so getting into Mount Sinai for the testing was a little bit of an issue. Scheduling for the surgery was an issue as well. But I think from start to finish, I think the quickest they want to do it is, unless it's an emergency, I mean,
Yeah.
it's always an emergency,
Right,
but when it's
exactly.
an immediate emergency, is probably about 2 months, is that correct? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Well, that's fairly fast, I mean, for a person once they have it.
I mean, the main wait is looking for a donor.
Let me ask you, once you talk about that, if there's so many people, on the other hand, not the donors, but the donees, that the people who need a kidney, what kind of, like, who gets priority? Who's number one? Obviously, there's
One who
so
has a
many
match with the blood type and the tissue type. That's the priority.
Yeah, if you're
I
looking
mean,
at
what
a-
if there's 50 like that? I mean, is that unique, the match? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well,
I don't know.
if you're looking at a deceased donation, when a kidney becomes available, it goes to the person at the top of the list. So it would be the sickest person that is matched to that kidney, and the best match, because again, it's based on blood and tissue typing. So they run a number of tests. So it would be the person that's most compatible with that particular
All right.
organ. Children do receive priority on the transplant waiting list.
But a child couldn't take Rabbi Math. I mean, he's a 20-year-old, middle 20s. I mean, there's bigger and smaller. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, children can receive adult
Really?
kidneys.
Oh, that's
They
But
can, yeah.
adults can't receive children's kidneys, right?
Typically not. no.
Because they haven't fully developed and fully
Correct.
grown. But a child can receive another child's kidney,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Because then the developmental progression of that child that received the kidney
yes.
is the kidney's growing with that child.
Correct,
So I just want to make it clear that,
Yeah,
there is
yeah.
a use for children's kidneys.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So what is the most or the least known or the biggest misconception about kidney donations out there? What do you think? What do you have to overcome in your education as part of the Kidney Foundation to overcome them, get people to realize that this is pretty much a quick process? It's not painless, but it's something that you're up and about a couple of days later, and you get back into the full swing of things, pretty fast. It's more than a hernia operation, but it's
More than hernia operation, yes. I think the biggest thing to overcome is the fear. I mean, it is major surgery, and
Yes.
there are always risks associated with any major operation in that way, but it's the fear of that surgery and just really educating people that, giving away a kidney, you can still live a normal life. So that's the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome. And we, like other kidney donors, to go out and talk to folks and let them know how the process was. Because kidney donors bounce back, pretty quickly.
And what's the renewal program? I heard about this program called Renewal. Are
I'm
you
not
familiar with
familiar
that?
with that, no.
Okay.
No.
I think renewal is an organization that facilitates donation within the Orthodox community.
Oh.
So if there would be, unless it was specified, a donation of a deceased person's kidney would go to whoever's on the list. But when there's a living donation, you can specify who that goes to, obviously. So I think that's what renewal does. It facilitates matching people within the Orthodox community who would want to give a kidney to a fellow community member.
And what was your biggest fear when you actually answered? Was it telling your wife that you were going to give the kidneys? That your biggest fear?
Telling your wife or asking you? I mean, really, did you? I mean, you consulted your wife.
So
I mean, you can't just,
I would say you tell her.
It's
my kidney.
When I first made that phone call, I honestly did not think I'd be donating a kidney. You have people, or very special people, are looking to give, and they really know going in that they're going to be giving their kidney. And I thought I was under the assumption that kidney donation is more like bone marrow, that you have to match up exactly, and there are a lot of different factors. But unless there's different antibodies that would not allow the kidneys to match, pretty much, as far as I understand, if the blood types match up and you're healthy, you can give your kidney.
so it's not a hard match; it's
Right.
a general match.
I mean, again, there are different circumstances, but generally, it's more of a simpler match. And I didn't know that at the time. So when we went to Mount Sinai for the initial blood work, and the nurse was telling me, about kidney donation, that if the blood types match up, you're blood type A, he's A, it's all good. And I'm like, oh.
It's really going to happen.
So she's like, you weren't really planning on giving a kidney, were you? And I'm not really. Like I said, once by divine providence, the opportunity fell in my lap. I wasn't going to give it up. I think, you asked the question about why do we have two kidneys. I think that the figure is a person's born with 5 times the kidney function that he or she needs for life. And as you get older, you deteriorate, like your body breaks down in general. But that means with when you give a kidney, you still have 2.5 times the kidney function that you need. So maybe the reason that we have 2 kidneys is because God wanted us to donate.
You have a spare tire over here in
He
your
want us to
car.
donate.
So that's what
Honestly, my
that was.
biggest fear was once the process had started, I didn't tell my wife about it because I didn't think it was
reality.
realistic. But once I saw that it was actually going to happen, the biggest fear was, how to tell my wife. But she kind of figured out that something was up, and she was amazing about it, and she stood behind me 100%. And
Good, excellent.
That's
And
wonderful.
so, Carol, what we have here that kidney disease by the numbers. 26 million American adults have chronic kidney disease, CKD. 1.5 million New Yorkers have chronic kidney disease. 500,000 plus Americans have irreversible kidney failure or on-stage renal disease, ESRD, and require dialysis or kidney transplant to survive. 355,000 plus ESRD patients receive dialysis at least 3 times a week to replace kidney function. I mean, these numbers are just incredible. The cost of kidney disease, $20 billion annual cost of the Medicare ESRD program. $42 billion annual Medicare expenditures to treat people with CKD. So this is, chronic kidney disease,
That
which
is
is
correct.
different from Myrna's
Is there a
case.
way to prevent this? I mean, you were talking about high blood pressure. Obviously, there are pills and all kinds of ways to control blood pressure. I guess if you're born, like you say with Myrna, if you're genetic, you can't do anything about it. Can't change your parents. But like high blood pressure, obviously, people can do something about it.
Yeah, a lot of the preventive measures are stuff that we hear about every day. If you have diabetes or high blood pressure, making sure that you're taking your medications as you're supposed to and keeping those conditions under control. But it's modifying your diet, it's exercise, it's reduced sodium, it's
People should
choosing
over-
water over other kinds
Soda,
of
yeah.
soda and stuff like that. So it's a lot of common sense.
So I just want to let everyone know, Myrna does have 2 prospects that they're
Yes.
going through the process
Yes.
at Mount Sinai. So
Yeah.
hopefully, live
Hopefully
and be
soon.
well, something will
What
come
if
of
other
that.
people want to donate it to people? We
Yeah,
have
why don't you
hundreds
give your
of thousands of people, that are watching our show, and maybe they're motivated now.
Sure.
Hey, I can help, and
Sure.
nothing happened to Rabbi Mathless. He's in good shape, and he's looking good after that.
Yes, he
So
is.
they would also, there's
Absolutely.
no problem with it. So how would they want to donate?
Well, we have on our website, which is healthykidneys.org, we have a link to local individuals that are waiting for a kidney. It's a site called the Kidney Connection, and if someone is so inclined, they can go and read the profiles of the people that are waiting. And the first step would be to contact the individual that's waiting and start a dialogue. And then from there, we would go to the transplant center and start the extensive testing process.
Very good, Mark, we're out of time.
Yeah, I
Do you
know,
have
but I
any
just
last
want to
words?
say this to Rabbi, to wrap it up. Some of the comments that were, there were many stories written about you, Rabbi Mathless, and there was a lot of the comments online said, to the Mathless is very nice, you should have all the brachas you need, Hashem should bench you. Wow, what a special family, may Hashem give you lots of good health and brachas. And I think that also comes from Rabbi Simon and myself. So.
Yeah, you're doing great work. I mean, with Carol, Dad, of helping people with their, like you say, it's a major problem. It's not just a slight problem today, and should continue with good health and good work. Rabbi Mathless, all the kudos to you that you gave up, like you say, people talk, I'd like to help, or they give a few dollars, but to give up your personal body is something that your normal person doesn't do. So kudos to you, and both of you should continue good work that you're doing with good health.
Thank you so
very
much for being here.
Thank you.